Hello everyone, and I hope that you're doing well. Now today we're looking at a past paper for the CSEC biology examination from the year 2022. And this is a paper one review. Now I have already answered the questions to make it easier to go through. However, what is very important is that I'm going to give some explanations for some of the questions. And the reason for this is really to help you to understand certain concepts, not only for answering paper one examinations, but also to answer paper two examinations, right? Because some of these concepts will be tested in paper two as well. But please remember though, before you start the examination, is for you to read through the instructions carefully and make sure you understand each instruction before you start the examination. Again, if you have any question, you ask the examiner before you start, because that is very important. Again, this is a paper one, so you have to shade in the answers. Now let's start with question number one. And the question number one is state that which of the following features is used to classify a group of organisms as class Insecta, which is insect. And so the size, the shape, or color, not important. Matter of fact, this question is a repeat question. The number of segments, very important, because remember, insects, they have 3 segments. And so you have the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. And so definitely D is the answer. For question number 2, it reads that which of the following sampling methods is most suitable to estimate or for estimating the density of mushrooms in a garden? Mushrooms are classified as immotile organisms, which means they're not able to move from place to place. And so a quadrat is used to estimate the population of slow moving or immotile organisms. Line transect and belt transect, they're pretty much they're the same thing. All right, they are the same thing. And the purpose for using these is really to have a line of demarcation or a border or region which you will take your estimate of population. For option D is really capture, mark, release, and recapture. And this is for motile organisms such as turtles, shark, rabbits, and so on. You know, things in the wild that are able to move really rapid. So definitely that is not the answer. So A, absolutely. All right, for question number 3. And this one reads now, which of the following correctly defines a niche and a habitat? Again, we can just run through this real quick because again, this is a repeat question. And so a niche is a role that the organism will play in the habitat or in the environment. And of course, the habitat is the place where the organism lives. So there's no need to explain that one. All right, so let's run through to question number 4 real quick. And number 4 is based upon this diagram. And so this is a food web. All right. And so the question asks, it said, trophic level 1 is represented by what? And trophic level is really each level of a food chain or a food web. So trophic level 1 is the producer. That is the first organism. And for this food web, the producer is the phytoplankton. And phyto refers to that they photosynthesize, right? Zooplankton, they are animal-like. And so the phytoplanktons, they are plant-like. All right. And once they are plant-like and able to photosynthesize, then they are the producer of the food web. All right. So B is our answer for question number 4. For question number 5, it reads that which of the following organisms are most important in biodegradation? And bacteria, definitely, because bacteria, they are decomposers. All right. And of course, as the name decomposers, it will break down the things by living things. All right. And so bio means living and degradation, or which means to break down, the same as decomposed. All right. So bacteria is definitely the answer. For question number 6 now, it says which of the following relationships may present harm to one of the organisms involved? And so let's run through them quickly. Commensalism, no harm. So that can't be the answer at all. All right. Parasitism, definitely. Because the parasite will definitely feed on the host and create some form of damage. The damage may not be immediate, but probably over time in some cases. Some cases, immediate, definitely. Predation, definitely. Predator, prey. Of course, the predator will hunt and kill the prey, definitely. So Must be 2 and 3. All right, let's go to number 7 and then we go back up to the other questions. All right, we're going to do it like that. All right, so question number 7, it reads that now approximately 10% of the energy stored in food is available to the next organism in a food chain because of what? Again, this is a repeat question. And the most appropriate answer right here is A. I said most of the energy is lost as heat during the process of respiration. The reason why organisms respire is to make energy available to carry out all their life functions. And so once organisms are using up some of the energy, only 10% will be available to the next organism. All right? So let's jump up to question number 8 real quick. And question number 8 is which of the following materials are considered to be non-biodegradable? Again, there's no explanation needed for this one because all living things or things from living organisms, they are biodegradable. So grass cuttings, definitely. Newspapers are from plants, paper coming from plants. Cloth as well can be broken down because, for example, you can have cotton, you can have silk. So definitely those are biodegradable. Sardine cans, definitely going to take a long time to break down. All right, so question number 9 is that human activities would have the least immediate impact on what? And of course, eutrophication is because of deposit of nutrients such as farming and so on. So that's direct and immediate. Overpopulation, of course, if you have a lot of organisms and it said human activities anyhow. So overpopulation, of course, if you reproduce real quickly, then that will lead to it. Coral bleaching, if you use chemicals in the ocean, it could damage the corals, definitely. Or not only that, anything that causes pollution can lead to coral bleaching, global warming, for example. All right? And so the easy answer, formation of fossil fuel. I mean, you have to die first, right? Before you can actually contribute to creating fossil fuel. And of course, formation of fossil fuels will take a very long period of time. All right? Hundreds and hundreds of years. All right, so question number 10 now. Is a replanting trees on a bare hillside is an example of what? So the key word here is replanting. And so reforestation is very important and restoration. All right, so that's the answer right there. All right, so question number 11. And for question number 11, it refers to this graph that we have here. We have population on the Y, and then we have some years. I highlight these years for a reason based on the question. And so let's go to the question really. And it said, which of the following factors most likely account for the change in population size from 1980 to 1989? And what happened from 1980 to 1989? If you notice here that the population is declining. All right, so we have a decrease in population. Again, I'm sure I've seen this question before. So this is more like a repeat question. Yes, it is. And so here we have increase in contraceptive. And if you have more contraceptives, then definitely going to reduce population, right? And so epidemic of deadly diseases, definitely. Yeah. And so decrease in fatal crimes. If you decrease crime, then you should have increased population, right? So 1 and 2 will be the most likely cause of declining or a decrease in the population. So definitely A is the answer. All right. So question number 12. And for question number 12, it refers to the following diagram, which is a cell. And of course, I have labeled the cell already, so you can look at the labelings. So we have the mitochondria. Notice what is a mitochondria. Notice the cristae, right? So you can notice the matrix, the cristae, and all those type of things. Once you see that, you know that definitely is a mitochondria, right? So once you see that shape, a chloroplast, we notice a chloroplast, you see the lines through it like that, and those lines really represent what you call a thylakoid. All right, and so we have a vacuole, large central vacuole, the nucleus here, and so on. All right, so anyway, what's very important is a question, and it said which of the labeled structure is responsible for controlling cellular activities, and it's the nucleus. And so the nucleus is structured for, as you see on the top of the page right here, right? So the nucleus is very important for controlling cell activities. Again, there's no needed explanation for that one. So let's run through. All right, so question number 13. It said, which of the following comparisons of the cell wall and cell membrane is incorrect? And so option A, notice it reads here, cell wall is found in both plants and animal cells, which is wrong. Only in plant cells, not animal cells. So no, half the but that's the answer, right? Cell membrane is found in animal cells only. That's not true. All cells have cell membrane. All right, so there's no need to explain that. That is straightforward. Question number 14 is which of the following organelle is directly involved in photosynthesis? And the organelle for photosynthesis is the chloroplast. Just to point out, the organ for photosynthesis is the leaf. All right? All right, so just to mention that. And we also have some very important cells that are necessary for photosynthesis, and those are the mesophyll cells. Both the palisade and the spongy mesophyll cells, they're important for photosynthesis. So just to mention those as well, right? So we have the organ, we have the organelle, and we also have the cells. All right, so let's jump to the next question now, which is question number 15. All right, now question number 15 refers to this diagram here. So we have distilled water in both the potato dish and also in the petri dish as well. So the cutout potato, distilled water. All right, just to make a mention before we even go any further with this question, right? If the potato and the petri dish contain distilled water, which means it's the same exact thing, right? Then we have no movement of water molecules. And so it'd be an isotonic situation. So the solution is considered to be isotonic, which means it's equal on both in and out of the cell, right? But the question now really is now what can be done to cause the level of solution in the petri dish to rise after 20 minutes. So in other words, what they're actually saying is what could cause this movement of water in this direction from the potato into the petri dish? What could cause the movement of water that way? That's what they're actually asking you. So remember what is osmosis now, right? For water to move that way, then in the potato must be more dilute, right? And in the petri dish must be more concentrated. And that is why B is correct, because if I add 5 grams of salt to the distilled water in the petri dish to make it more concentrated solution, right? And so definitely water will move out of the potato itself, right? Just to mention that one real quick. All right, so I hope you understand osmosis. And remember that osmosis is movement of water molecules from an area of high concentration, which means a dilute solution, to an area of lower concentration, which is a concentrated solution, right? All right, and it must go through a semi-permeable membrane. So you need to know to explain osmosis as well, just to make a mention. Question number 16. Now the question now reads autotrophic organisms, right? Derive their nutrients from. And when we say autotrophic, it means that they are self-feeding organisms, such as plants that photosynthesize, right? And so they use simple inorganic substances. And so we're talking about like plants that use water and carbon dioxide. Of course, they need sunlight because they are photosynthesizing. And so the simple inorganic substances will be carbon dioxide and water. All right. We also have a next group of organisms, just to mention, that is called chemotrophs. And chemotrophs, they do not use sunlight, but they only take energy from simple inorganic chemicals. That's why the word chemo coming from chemicals, right? We call them chemotrophs. Number 17, it said, which of the following features does not enhance a leaf ability to absorb solar energy? And so solar energy is technically, if you think about it, light coming from the sun, right? Sun, solar. And so if you have more chloroplasts in the palisade, definitely, because the chloroplast is what contains chlorophyll that absorbs sunlight. So more chloroplasts mean more chlorophyll, mean more absorption. The presence of vascular bundle is the answer. Vascular bundle does not contribute to the absorption of light, because the vascular bundle, they are responsible to transport substances. And the vascular bundle include both xylem and phloem. Xylem transport water and mineral salts, while the phloem transport plant food, particularly in the form of sucrose. You need to remember that. If the cuticle is transparent, beautiful, because light passes through transparent substances or objects. Large surface area, oh yes. The larger the surface area is, more light can be absorbed. All right. So jump into question number 18 now real quick. All right. Again, I'm going to try to go through as fast as possible. All right, but bear with me with some of the questions because we really need to explain certain things, yeah? All right, now for question number 18. And it said now refers to the following table, which shows the result of food test performed on 3 food samples X, Y, and Z. And so I'll put the answers here to kind of assist us in explaining. And so if it turned violet, which is same as purple, right? With sodium hydroxide and copper sulfate. And this copper sulfate and sodium hydroxide can also be substituted for what they call Benedict's solution, all right? Sorry, not Benedict's, Burette solution. So this is sodium hydroxide and copper sulfate is a substitute for our Burette solution. All right, and so once it turns purple, then protein is present, all right? Or violet, protein is present. Now to test for starch, iodine will turn into blue-black, right? Or bluish-black or dust-black. And so definitely Y is starch. Now, turning an orange precipitate when heated with Benedict's, and Benedict's is used to test for sugars, but I'm going to point out something right here. So once Benedict's turns to orange after hydrolysis, then we know that is a non-reducing sugar. So I'm going to point out something here. There are 2 types of sugars that we need to know. One is called reducing and one is called non-reducing. How do we know that this is non-reducing? Is because of the word hydrolysis. So hydrolysis means to split by using water. And of course, heat is needed for that splitting. Now, to understand this, a reducing sugar is also what they call a reducing agent. All right? And a reducing sugar, it donates electrons. And so there's something called a carbonyl group within the sugar that is oxidized. Now, to reduce, and this is how the reducing part come in now. So if it's a reducing sugar, the most important thing for you to understand this now is that reducing sugar will change copper sulfate, which is blue, into copper oxide, which is a more reddish brownish substance. And so that is why we know that reducing sugar will directly change without any form of hydrolysis. Now for non-reducing sugar now, which is the answer right here now. Why non-reducing sugar? Because non-reducing sugar, they cannot donate electrons. They cannot be oxidized, very important. And for them to react with the copper sulfate is that what must take place is that they must be broken down into simple sugars by the process of hydrolysis. Hydrolysis means to split. And so a basic or a typical example of non-reducing sugar is sucrose. And sucrose is a disaccharide. So for disaccharide to react with Benedict's, it must turn into simple sugars. And that's why you hydrolyze it, break it down by using heat and water. All right? And then examples of the reducing sugars will be like glucose, maltose, and fructose, right? Even though maltose, and this is very important too, even though maltose is a disaccharide, but maltose contains 2 glucose molecules, right? And glucose is a reducing sugar on its own. All right, so just to point that out. All right, so the answer there will be protein, starch, and non-reducing sugar, and that answer is D. All right, for question number 19, again, is a diagram of a tooth, and we already labeled. So you have enamel, the dentine, the pulp, and the root. So the question asks on which region of the tooth contains a large number of blood vessels and nerves, and that would be in the pulp, which is section 3 of the diagram. So again, there's no need to explain that, as we know that. All right, let's go into other questions. I really want to explain the ones that really need explaining. For question number 20, so which of the following graphs show the effect of temperature on an enzyme controlled reaction? And so what is very important is that enzymes, they are inactive at low temperatures, and as temperature rises, then they become more active, and if temperature is too high, then they are going to decline in terms of activity. So this graph D is the correct graph because it shows that at low temperature, the activity is low. As temperature increases, then it gets high, and then after a certain point, which is called optimal temperature, then the activity of the enzyme will decrease. I want you to notice that the highest point is close to the body temperature, right? Or the temperature of the organism that it's in. All right, higher than certain point, then we say the enzyme will become denatured. All right. And so just to make reference to that. All right. So that was question number what? I even forget the question, but let's go up and see if I'm missing anything. Yep. So that is question number 20. So, okay, so 21. So question number 21 is a 50-year-old male is advised by his doctor to pay special attention to the amount of salt in his diet. He probably has a high chance of developing what? And so salt, as I put them here, obesity deals with high fat, all right? Diabetes, definitely high amount of sugar. And hypertension is high salt. So hypertension is the correct answer. Sickle cell anemia is because of low iron, right? All right, or low hemoglobin in the red blood cells. All right. All right. And so question number 22 now. And question number 22 refers to this diagram as well. So we have the label, we have a trachea, we have the rib, we have the lung, and we have the diaphragm. And so it's a which label part represent the rib. Okay, I will label that. So definitely B is the answer for that one. So there's no need to explain that. Just need to know your structure of respiratory system. So question number 23 refers to the following diagram of the respiratory structure. And this structure is an alveolus. So the respiratory structure shown above is that of what? Okay, I'm jumping too fast. Sorry about that. Let me just go back a little bit up. All right, you're right. And so it is an alveolus. Okay, there's no need for explanation there, of course. And the purpose for the alveolus is for gaseous exchange between the lungs and the blood capillaries. And again, remember what you need to know about the alveolus or any respiratory surface is that they must have large surface area, they must be thin, they must be covered with a lot of capillaries, and they also need to be moist. Okay, so those are features that enhance the effectiveness for gaseous exchange. But question number 24 is which of the following is an effect of nicotine found in cigarette smoke? And so directly it increases heart rate. All right, and the reason for that is because the body is not able to absorb enough oxygen. And so the heart compensates for the low oxygen. So the heart beats faster to pump more oxygen to the body cells. All right, so that would be the answer for question number 24. I make a point right here at option C because, I mean, again, it is because of low oxygen why the heart rate increased. But notice what the nicotine is doing right here. They said this one reduce oxygen transported by the blood. No, it reduces the uptake of oxygen by the capillaries because of the alveolus or alveoli, to pluralize, will be covered in tar. And so it will affect the uptake and not the transport. So the heart rate increase to increase the transport of the oxygen. And so if they actually stated that it reduces the uptake of oxygen, then that would be the answer. But the transport is not the answer, okay? Because the increase in heart rate will compensate for the transport of the optimal amount of oxygen. Just to mention that as well. All right, so 25. I think 25 is up top. Yep, indeed. All right, so 25 is an amoeba obtains all its oxygen it needs by diffusion via the cell membrane. It's while a human needs to have special respiratory surfaces for this purpose, the best explanation for this difference is that, and the answer is here, this is a repeat question again, which I've already explained in a past paper before. And it said that a human surface area, the volume ratio is too small for diffusion to be effective. And that is why we take in gases directly into our lungs via tubes, which is the trachea, the bronchi, and the bronchioles, right? So we can, gases will flow easier through tubes to supply us with our optimal amount of oxygen, right? All right, 26. Because we have 60 questions. I want to run through real quick. All right, so which of the following options best identifies some of the transport substances in animals? And it said in animals, so just to make sure, point it out. Keyword is in animals. Amino acids, yes, is taken up by the blood after the digestion of proteins. Hormones transport in the blood as well. Sucrose is transported in plants by the process called translocation. And so 1 and 2 will be the substances that will be transported in animals. And for question number 27, it said the essential vitamins and minerals, mineral ions required for blood clotting in humans are, and that is potassium and the calcium ion. And so D is the answer. All right. And so now let's jump into the next question. And so here we are at question number 28. So let's run to question number 8 real quick. 28. All right, and question number 28 now it reads that artificial immunity can be best described as what? All right, now we think about immunity and the word artificial, it means that it is by man, right? And so if you're going to do it, it is not acquired from the mother, all right? So this is acquired from the body's natural defense, and this is what we call active immunity. It is produced by deliberate exposure to the pathogen, such as like doing vaccine or vaccinations. And so B is an action by man or us. C, has been passed from mother to child. That is also what we call passive. And also through breastfeeding, because colostrum is from the milk, the mother's milk, right? The first colostrum is really the first milk. And so that is also a passive. So active is you producing that natural immunity. Passive is getting from mother to child. And artificial is creation of the immunity by man. All right. And so question number 29. But question number 29 is under which condition will the rate of transpiration in plants be highest? And so transpiration, again, is loss of water from plants, and so is by the process of evaporation. And so definitely high sun and high wind, because wind will take the water away from the leaves, which makes it easier for evaporation to take place. For low wind, the water will stay close to the leaf, which means the air will be a little saturated, and it'll be very difficult for you to pass water from the leaf to the atmosphere. So definitely high wind, take away the water from the leaf surface, and also increase the movement of water out of the leaf into the atmosphere. So high sun, high wind. 30, which is halfway through our target. All right, so it's in the transport of solutes in the phloem. And again, the solute here will be sucrose, all right? Remember, we talk about that. That's translocation. Once you hear phloem, think about sucrose, sugars. Think about sugars, particularly sucrose. All right, and say the source is defined as any area of the plant where. So notice now the source. And so the source of the solute must be anywhere where sucrose is loaded into the phloem. A source is where you generate the thing or where you start from, right? So that is a straightforward answer as well. All right, so let's go to 31. So 31 here refer to this diagram of a plant. So we have a potato plant right here. And so we label them again. We leave the stem, the tuber, and the root. And they say which part of the plant contains the most starch. And the most starch is found in potato tuber, right? It's starchy food. All right, so part 3, definitely. That's straightforward. No need to really discuss that one. Question number 32. And here refers to the mammalian kidney nephron. And I labeled that as well. So we have the glomerulus. We have the Bozeman capsule, we have the proximal convolution, and the distal convolution. A very easy way to remember which one is proximal and distal is the proximal mean it is closer, all right, to the Bozeman capsule, and the distal, which means it's further away in the distance. So you know that distal distance, proximal is in close proximity to the Bozeman capsule. Loop of Henle, collecting duct. All right, and so a question read here, so which of the following correctly identifies the functioning of each of the labeled parts, 1, 2, and 3? And so 1 is the Bozeman capsule, and what I mean Bozeman capsule is ultrafiltration, and 2, which is the convolution that responsible to absorption of certain substances, and the loop of Henle also help with absorption as well. And so here now, B is the correct answer because again, ultrafiltration takes place in the Bozeman capsule. So it only could be between A and B. And then for the convolution is for selective absorption of certain things or reabsorption of certain things, such as glucose. And then in D, it actually helps you with absorption as well, but it mainly helps with conservation of water. All right, but also reabsorption takes place of certain substances as well. Just to mention that. Along the tubule of the nephron, reabsorption of glucose takes place. And that's the reason why you do not find glucose inside of your urine. Otherwise, you're considered to be diabetic or you have a kidney problem. All right, so question number 33 is that which of the following correctly describes movement in plants? And so, movement in plants is generally by growth. All right, it's generally by growth. And remember that plants use the hormone auxin to grow. And so you may have different type of tropic response. And so you have like phototropic, geotropic, and all those things, right? Hydrotropic, all right? Thigmotropic. And so it is reversible because of course it's growth, right? And again, B is the, C is the direct answer, as you notice, irreversible by growth. One is saying that is irreversible, but by whole or part movement, no. Generally by growth. Plants move by growth. 34. The locomotion, which is movement, is an evolutionary adaptation performed by animals. What advantages do this or does this mechanism have over the type of movement that occurs in plants? And plants again is immotile, which are stationary. And so the advantage here is the ability to move to favorable conditions. Definitely, if you're in a hot place, you could go to a cooler place. If this is dry, go to a more moist place, things like that. So definitely move from place to place that is more favorable. To increase the chance of predator attack. No, that would be a really backward way if you're going to in the danger, right? So not to, you run away from them, you run away from predators. And so the ability to find food, definitely. So you now become the prey, become a predator instead of the prey. All right, so 1 and 3 is the correct answer, definitely, indeed. All right, so B is the correct answer for 34. For 35, it said, which of the following best describe the terms stimulus and response? So again, straightforward. Stimulus is any changes within environment, right, that cause a response. And so a response now is a reaction to the stimulus. So D is the answer. So detecting the stimulus or any changes in the environment, and the response will be the reaction to that stimulus. So stimulus is any change within the environment. Now, for 36, it refers to the diagram illustrating the steps involved in an experiment. And so this again is to detect, if you notice the top of the shoot is being covered or removed, and in the tip of the shoot is where you find auxin. So this definitely is affecting growth or the effectiveness of growth or the effect of light on growth, things like that. So after a few days, the tallest shoot will be what? So which of them will be the tallest shoot? And so here you covered this with a foil cap. You remove the tip. This was uncovered. This is transparent. So by half the bat, 3 and 4 will be the same thing because if it's transparent and uncovered, light could pass through it, and so it will have an effect on the auxin. And so the auxin will move to the darker side of the plant, only on the darker side of the plant. And so the light is, you have less auxin. If the tip is removed, then no auxin is being produced, and so that will remain in the same height pretty much. And then if you cover it now, then auxin is distributed equally through the entire shoot. And so if auxin is distributed through the entire shoot, then the shoot will grow in all that, will go straight up easily because it's not on either side. So there is no bending taking place in 1. So 1 is the correct answer. No bending taking place, again, because there's an equal distribution of auxin. All right, so light affects auxin by pushing auxin or let auxin concentrated on the darker side of the shoot, all right? All right, so question number 37 is a reference to the following diagram of a reflex arc. And so again, this is labeled for you, and just to point out something here. Coming from the point of source is a receptor cells, and then they go into the sensory neuron, and then notice D is the cell body of the sensory neuron, but this line here is the sensory neuron, and then after the sensory neuron we have the relay, and then after relay we have a motor, and after the motor we have our receptor cells within the muscle, and the muscle is what causes movement. Now, point to note as well, if you notice here, I label this as white matter and gray matter. Gray matter is in the central part of the spinal cord, and again, this structure is the spinal cord, as you notice the label on top. and the white matter is on the outer side and the outermost part of the spinal cord. The brain is different. The gray matter is on the outside, the white matter is on the inside. All right. So the brain is opposite to the spinal cord in terms of position of gray matter and white matter. I just want to point that out. And so, which label structure is the relay? Is which structure? Sorry, it's a which label structure relays the impulse to an effector, and again, that's the relay neuron, which is B, and again, it will transport it all the way into the motor neuron, and then it goes into the effector. All right, so that answer is B. A matter of fact, no, this answer is C. I said which label structure relays impulse to an effector. So it is a motor neuron. So this is actually C. So let me just change that real quick. This one is actually C. Yeah, and this cannot be B. Because it relate to the effector. Effector are in the muscle. Effector cells, they're in the muscles. So it's the motor neuron that actually sends the impulse into the effector. Okay, so let's change that one. All right, cool. All right, so continuing. So C is the answer for that one. 38, they said the function of the choroid layer in the eye is to do what? And again, it's a focus light rays onto the focus light rays, and that will be the lens that will do that. It will refract light rays onto the retina, and so prevent internal reflection. So internal reflection is prevented or reduced by the choroid. All right, so choroid is the answer. B is the answer for the choroid function. All right, maintains the shape of the eyeball, that's the vitreous humor, control the amount of light entering the eye, that is the pupil, and the pupil is controlled by the function of the iris. All right, so the iris controls the size of the pupil. All right, so 39. And 39 refers to the following diagram of the a section of a human skin. And so here now we have different layers of the skin. We have epidermis, dermis, and so I label some of those parts for you as well. You can just pause and see the different labeling. All right. The subcutaneous layer is also called the fat layer as well, just to mention of that. And so the question now reads which structure is not involved in temperature control, and what is not involved in temperature control is the oil gland. All right. The erectile muscle will pull the ear up or down, depending on if you're hot or cold. I notice when you're cold, you have like goosebumps and so on, because the hair follicle is controlled by the erectile the erectile muscle. And the capillary will involve what they call vasodilation, vasoconstriction. So if you are cold, then you have vasoconstriction, which will keep the heat or retain the heat in the body. If you are hot or the temperature is hot on the outside or high, then you have vasodilation, and vasodilation will dilate the capillaries and push heat outside of the body, all right, through the skin, of course. All right, so part 2 is your answer for that of the diagram. All right, so question number 40, and we kind of speed up a little bit now. I notice time is really against us. All right, so question number 40 is a reference to the following graph, which illustrate a measurement of growth in living organisms. And if you notice what is happening here in terms of growth, slow growth or low growth, and then it continues, and then it stabilizes or plateaus. And I say, which of the following label would be incorrect for the y-axis? All right, so y-axis, unit of time. Time is not increasing, stabilizing, or decreasing. Time is just an increase. In fact, the most important thing why time cannot be on the y-axis as well is because time is an independent variable. So you normally put independent variable on your x-axis and the dependent variables on your y. So mass, length, number of leaves, those are what they call dependent variables. You put those on the y-axis, all right? Because those will change over a period of time, or they are affected based on time. All right, so 41 is that which of the following statements describe the processes taking place within a seed during germination? And so what I've done is to kind of just make some notes right here and number them 1, 2, 3. And so the first thing should happen here is that the enzyme will break down proteins into amino acids. Generally, enzyme will break down the food, not just proteins, but also break down starch to produce glucose, and glucose produce the energy that is will be necessary for all the cellular activities for germination to take place. Then once the nutrients are broken down, then the nutrients that are coming from like carbohydrates and protein, which are insoluble, they become more soluble, and they can move into the embryo, And again, so this is because of transport of the absorbed nutrients. So you make the nutrients available, then you transport them and then they absorb. And then the final thing here, the embryo uses the food or the nutrients to develop their radicle and plumule. And that's why you have, once you see radicle and plumule, then germination actually begins. All right, or visible germination begins. I would say that. All right, so D will be your correct answer. So it'll be 2, 3, and then 1. All right, so let's go to the next question now, which is question number 43, I think. Let me just go back to make sure. Oh, no, 42 is here. All right, so the production of new organisms from one parent only is known as asexual reproduction, right? And there are different forms of asexual reproduction. You need to research that or revise the different forms of asexual reproduction, such as binary fission, budding, and so on. So please make sure you go through those. All right. 2 parents, male and female, that will be sexual reproduction. All right. Just to make a mention too, that in some organisms, mitosis will assist asexual reproduction, but not all asexual reproduction involve mitosis, because binary fission is not mitosis. It's 2 different things, all right? So just to make mention of that. All right, meiosis here is for sexual reproduction, the producing of production of gametes. All right, just to make mention of that one as well. All right, so next question is 43. And 43 refers to these 2 diagrams here, the egg cell and the sperm cell, and it says which of the following structures is common to both cells? And cilium, no. Cilium aids in movement, just to make mention of that as well. And you may find ciliated cell in different parts of the body, such as in your nasal cavity and trachea and so on. Nucleus is present in both of them because the nucleus is what is carrying genetic information that will be combined, particularly the chromosome that will combine to produce a diploid cell. All right, and C, flagellum, which is the tail for swimming in the sperm cell. Acrosome is in the sperm cell and it contains the enzymes that are needed to penetrate the egg or the ovum. All right. All right. So 44, we're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. No, be patient. All right. Sorry to take so long, but the explanations are needed, right? You don't think so? All right. So 44. It said, which of the following forms of birth control is most likely 100% effective? And the most effective one right here, condom is good. Really, really good. But again, it's not 100% effective because, again, it can burst. Depends on its usage. If not used properly, then it could cause damage and then definitely could cause pregnancy. Diaphragm can shift, definitely. Tubal ligation is definitely it because you will cut, tie, and burn the fallopian tube. Well, in not all cases burn, but cut and tie is the most important. Of course, sometimes they burn the ends as well. So it's be difficult to even go back together. And so once you have done that, there's no way the sperm cell can meet the egg cell. Birth control pills, they are really, really good as well. So they're really, really good. But in terms of 100% effective, I mean, depends on your body reaction to them and all those type of things. If they're outdated, depends on how strong they are. And there are a number of different things could affect it. But they're really, really effective, right? But the best one is tubal ligation. 45. The 45 refers to this diagram, and we have a plant, 2 flowers really, flower 1 and flower 2. And 45 asks now which of the following statement is true for the flowers. Again, if you notice the flower carefully, flower 1 is pollinated by hummingbirds, so we could take that, or insects too, because based on the shape, they have to go inside of the flower, right? So it normally will be brightly colored. It's not shown in colored right here, but definitely for insect or animals, right? But flower 2 is generally by wind, and that's why if you notice the anther, they're hanging on the outside. So they can easily move by wind. And not only that, too, if you notice the stigma is feathery. And so why you have a feathery stigma is that it's easy to capture the incoming pollen grains, right? So it will be for wind. All right. So we're at 46. So 46 is up top. Let's go back up top to 46 real quick. We're almost there. We're almost there. Now 46, which of the following is the correct sequence for the seed formation after fertilization? All right. So when the seed is fertilized, all right, what we're going to have is we have the ovule, which is the unfertilized egg. And so once the egg is fertilized, which is the ovule, then it becomes zygote, and the zygote develop into embryo, and then embryo develop into seed. All right. So the ovule is the first thing, which is unfertilized. Then once it's fertilized, becomes zygote, embryo, and into seed. All right. And just to make mention again, the ovary will form the fruit, and ovule forms seed. All right. So 47. You see, a vector is defined as an organism that do what? And really transport or transmit diseases. All right, so they are transmitters of diseases. All right, so these carry cancer, transmit diseases carrying organisms. So there's no need to explain that. All right. All right, so we're at 48. Now, 48 is referred to the following diagram, which shows the life cycle of an organism, and this is a mosquito, of course. So I label them again. We have the egg, the pupa, the larva, and the adult. And it said, at which stage is the organism easily controlled by the use of aerosol insecticides? And aerosol is really like sprays, sprays in the atmosphere, in the air. All right, so it's gaseous. And so if you notice here, 1, 2, and 3, they are found in the water, so you cannot use aerosol to kill those. But the adult mosquito, that will be in the air because they're flying, so definitely, or you find them on land or in the air, so definitely aerosol will destroy those easier. Now, for 49, it says a 60-year-old man has been diagnosed with hypertension as well as diabetes. Which of the following treatments would be most effective for the diseases? And so again, hypertension, remember that was salt, and diabetes is for sugar. So exercising and low intake of salt, and refrain from carbohydrates, because carbohydrates will break down into your sugars, right? So definitely A is the answer. There's no even need to go any further with that one. All right, so 50. Talk about 50 real quick. All right, so which of the following best describe a chromosome? And a chromosome now is a structure made up of DNA. Okay, so chromosomes made up of what? DNA, and DNA will wrap around what they call histone proteins, right? And just a point to make as well is that the DNA will make up of genes. So you have chromosomes, DNA, then genes in terms of what is the largest one. The largest one is chromosome. Then we have our DNA, and then we have our genes. All right, just to make mention there. And so let's jump to 51, and that is close to where we want to go because we're almost at the end. So 51 is referred to the following diagrams. We show the stages of mitosis. I already labeled them for you because mitosis is PMAT, just to mention that. And so PMAT, which we have our prophase, our metaphase, our anaphase, and our telophase. How we know which one is which one, yeah? All right, let's say prophase is hardest one to identify, right? Not a problem. But the anaphase is the easiest one. Well, I won't say the easiest one, but one of the easiest one. So the anaphase, the chromatids, notice my words here, the chromatids, they are on opposite side, or opposite poles of the cell. There's no nuclear membrane, if you notice that. We have our spindle fiber, we have our centriole, and all those stuff. Metaphase, the chromosomes are in the middle. They line up on an area which we call the metaphase plate. So they are in single file. Yes, in the single file in the center of the cell. All right, that's metaphase middle. All right. Anaphase, you can think about being antisocial. They move apart from each other. Right. And the telophase now is when the nuclear membrane reform. If you notice now, the chromatids, they are in their own nucleus, but still in the same cell. And if it's a plant cell, then you have pinching taking place. And if it's not a plant cell, what you're going to have, you have cleavage furrow, right? So plant cells, you have pinching. And for animal cells, you have what they call cleavage furrow form, all right? And so if you notice, it is just a means or indication of separation into the last stage, which is called cytokinesis. And then our prophase is when the chromosomes are together, they are condensed, they are thick, and they are visible. That's our prophase. And so what I've labeled right here is I, P, mat, C, and I is interphase that comes before the mitotic phases. And the interphase is where there's no cellular division, all right? But the PMAT is where we have the nuclear division. This nucleus is dividing, as you can see in the diagrams. And cytokinesis is when the cytoplasm divides. That's the final stage, and you have two new cells form. So definitely 3, 2, 1, and 4 will be the correct order. as again PMAT, if you think about it the way I label it. All right, so you can pause and just go back over it and you will see exactly. Let's go back a little bit so when you're pausing, you actually see them together like that. All right, so definitely. All right, so let's jump to our next question now. We have 9 questions to go. You can believe that? We are here so long. But anyhow, let's run through this. It's on a certain Caribbean island, right, where sugarcane is grown. A fungus is accidentally introduced into the island and destroy the entire crop of sugarcane. Notice I like this part. The entire crop of sugarcane is gone. Which of the following best explains why the entire crop was destroyed by the fungus? The entire crop. The whole thing, nothing left. So if the entire crop is destroyed by this one fungus, it therefore means all the sugarcane, they are the exact same thing in terms of their genetic makeup. They have no resistance at all. And so the easy answer, because there's no genetic variation among the plants, and so none could survive the attack. In other words, none of them will have any resistance to this fungus, because being genetically identical means that if one disease affects one, it affects all. All right, so there's no variation. Variation means there are differences, and so if there are differences, then you have different resistance and so on. All right, so 53. It reads that which of the following is not a characteristic of meiosis? And meiosis gives you half the number of chromosomes, which means haploid, which haploid half. It's a maintain the diploid number. Diploid is the full number, which means doubles the number of chromosomes in terms of pairs, right? And so definitely A is the answer right there. 54, and we're almost there, my gentle people. It said, which of the following terms refers to the visible characteristics of living things? And the visible characteristic is the phenotype, physical, all right? The things that you observe with the eyes. Gene, genotype, and chromosomes, no, you can't see them with your eye like that. You have to actually use microscopes and all different type of stuff. All right, so let's jump to 55 really quick, and we're at the end of the tunnel. There is light, my friends. All right, 55. Albinism is caused by the recessive allele. 2 normal parents produce an albino child. This is because of what? If both parents are normal, the only possible way that they could produce an albino child, which is recessive genes, is that both of them must have a carrier for that allele. And so they're what they call carriers, and carriers are what they call heterozygous parents in terms of recessive diseases. So both would have to be heterozygous. And again, you can do Punnett square, put up your recessive allele and your normal allele, heterozygous for both. You realize that you have 25% of producing the albino child. All right, so you can use a Punnett square to do that. All right. And 56, it's one example of sex-linked disease is color blindness. That's the direct answer right there. Cancer is a mutation of the cells, can cause by mutation of the cell. Down syndrome is also a mutation. We have extra chromosome. Hypertension is not a genetic disease. Generally, it's not genetic. It can be, but it's not a sex thing, definitely. Because hypertension could also be from lifestyle as well, right? So it could be both, but generally it's because of lifestyle, intake of a lot of salt, as we mentioned earlier. All right, so for this 57, is a variation in population is due to what? Mutation, crossing over, and crossing over is when we're producing gametes. All right, and so this takes place in our prophase. All right, and so mutation could cause changes, so definitely, and crossing over, definitely, that's what will cause the exchange of genetic materials from chromosome to chromosomes. All right, especially what we call tetrads. So when chromosomes come together in meiosis 1, we have what they call crossing over and synapsis. And that is when one chromosome will exchange genetic material to another chromosome. All right, so definitely that's what causes us to be unique and different. Even siblings are different because of crossing over. All right, so 1 and 2 is the answer. So A is the correct answer for that. 58. A species consists of members that what? So if you have the same species, that means you can reproduce and produce viable offspring. And so you can interbreed on the natural conditions. Different species, because of difference in chromosomes and so on, they are not able to produce fertile offsprings. All right, and so we're on the last two questions. So, which of the following description is true for natural and artificial selection? And natural selection here will produce a great biological diversity, and artificial selection will produce very different organism, definitely from natural population. So, example, the breeding of dogs and so on. It will be a change from what the natural population is, but natural selection, a typical example for that is the giraffe situation. We have the long neck, short neck, medium neck, and so over time, what you will have here is only long neck. So that's natural selection. The fittest of fittest will survive. All right. So definitely, that will be the answer. C, right there will be the answer. All right. So the final question is: which of the following would be involved in the production of insulin by genetic engineering? And so the first one is a transfer of the human insulin gene to a bacterium. All right. And so the question actually, if you notice, says involved in the production of insulin genetic engineering. And so, yes, you have to transfer the human gene into the bacterium, definitely. A vector to transfer the insulin gene, absolutely need that. And the production of the insulin gene by the bacterium. So all of them are involved in the production of insulin. All right, so this is our final question. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And I hope the explanations also help you. And of course, good luck on the examination. And I will talk to you soon. Take care, all right? We're out. Peace.